Hi folks, welcome to Bear Mountain today. We are starting week 11, I believe. Yes, it's 11 and it is tomorrow, and it is time for us to coppice or pollard our eucalyptus so that we can keep them in control and get out some really great greens for this upcoming year. So today is March 7th. And I think what we're going to do here is first we're going to talk to you a little bit about this. This is a very small patch of eucalyptus you can see behind me. We've got actually 3 varieties in here. The first variety is a semi-dwarf called Baby Blue. I think it's Baby Blue Dwarf Florist is the official name. And then in the next group is one that would be called a silver gum. It is a bit bigger leaf, and then the back, the very, very tall ones are called silver drop. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all of these guys down to about 18 to 20 inches. And it's going to look really ugly when we get finished with it for a bit until it sprouts out. But what this does is this encourages the eucalyptus trees to grow more juvenile wood. Juvenile wood tends to have more of a bloom on the leaves, so you know how you get that kind of like, I don't know what the right term for it is, other than it's kind of like a coating on the leaves that give it a little more silvery look to them. And the leaves on most species of eucalyptus also tend to be smaller and rounder when they are at a small level. So when they have more juvenile wood on them, it tends to give you a green that is more desirable by florists. As the trees get into growing taller, like the silver drops that we have in the back, and we'll take a walk and take a look at those, the leaf actually loses that luster and becomes kind of a more dull color. So the main reason we want to coppice these guys down is to, one, keep them under height control, because it really is kind of a pain to try to pick eucalyptus from 30 feet up in the air. And two, what we also want to do is we want to keep that juvenile wood. We want to get as much of that going as we can. So let's take a walk through and take a look at the couple of different varieties, and we can see what we're going to need to do to cut them down to size. Okay, the first species we got in here, we have a few weeds left over from summertime in here on these trees. This is the Baby Blue Dwarf Florist, and it tends to grow almost, really almost like in a bush-like look to them. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these guys down to really about this tall, somewhere right around in here. That'll be pretty close to, well, maybe right about here. It'll be about 20 inches. And then we'll trim off these extra things and kind of leave it to basically one central leader on it, and from that it should have sprouts that will come up with new growth. Now when we cut these guys off, we're also going to sort through it and see if there's any merchantable stems, and so before we just discard this. I mean, there are some that are obviously frost damage from the winter time, but there are also some in here that are still in pretty good shape and could be used by a florist. So we're going to sort through that, and we'll get those guys put together and put in the cooler. Now one of the things though that you can tell when it's time to coppice these guys is you want to be sure that you're getting into this time of the year when these guys are starting to grow again. The number one thing that can kill off a eucalyptus tree after you coppice it is if you do it too early. So if you're in your area and you still have a potential of getting freezing weather and snow and things of that nature, you definitely want to hold off doing this, because they're very susceptible to freezing damage once you coppice them. That area right would die back from the cut down, and so what you want to do is you want to kind of be in that time of the year where the tree is already starting to grow, and so the temperatures are warm enough, and the odds of you having, a prolonged deep freezing event that would kill off the tree is pretty much past. So that's very important to do that. Let's take a look at the other variety. Okay, this variety is a silver gum type, and it's kind of growing more to definitely to a central leader with branching off to the side. So a lot of what we took off of this guy this year were side branches or from the very top and the main tip itself. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to take this guy down to about 20, these guys down to about 20, 25 inch, and clear out all the weeds, and then we'll put also in some wood chips over the top, which should help keep the weed situation from getting out of control again. We had some late fall weeds that really went nuts on us. And this group right in here, here's a prime example of one that's really growing to a central leader right here. And if you get in, you know, I pull my garbage out of the way here. And if you get in and you look at it, you can see there's the central leader of the tree. And what we'll do is we'll take that guy down to about this height. This will be roughly cut to about here. And then there is one small sprout out the backside, and we'll probably coppice that down to the same level. So the idea is all this is going to be taken out. And if we can get any branches off of that are merchantable, what we'll do with the rest of the wood is we'll turn that into biochar. The last variety, and this one's really popular with florists, this one over here is Silver Drop, and it is a very strong central leader type growth to it, meaning that it will branch off of a main trunk. So when we coppice this down to the same level again, what we're going to want to make sure is that we kind of select for when it begins to sprout out, that if it puts out too many sprouts, we're going to want to thin it to very few, and again try to get it going to a central leader type thing where we'll have maybe a couple of whips going up. And then also too, again, taking off the side branches. As you can see, you can get some nice merchantable stems just from these guys right here. So that'll take this down. And some of these trees, this is the thing, is these trees here, these silver gum, or excuse me, the silver drops this is their third year. And last year, I mean, the first year they weren't very big at all. We'll show you some of our just planted ones that we did last year out in our second plot that we're just getting restarted. But these were all grown from seed. So we started these guys 3 years ago. And all of this growth to get, like I've got one tree there that's clearly 20 feet tall. And that happened in last year. Because at springtime, when they began to break dormancy and grow again, they were about maybe 6 feet tall, about as tall as I am. So I'm not even 6 foot, but yeah, they were a little taller than me. So this is amazing, you know, what these guys can do in the span of a year.
They like it.
They like this spot. And we've actually gotten to the point too where we don't have to irrigate too much. And what we're gonna be trying to do with underneath these guys is any of the small merchantable, unmerchantable type branches, we're gonna chop and drop them here to try to form kind of a layer between the ground, the surface of the ground, and where the trees start growing again. The idea behind that is that hopefully over time that, you know, we do this a couple of times because we'll probably be coppicing these things almost on an annual basis from here going forward. That the idea would be is that we're changing the chemistry of the soil, and we're changing the light levels with the mulch, that we'll get fewer and fewer weeds and we won't have any weeding issues. As you can see in the silver drop, there's no weeds in here. I mean, this last year is a prime example of, we had a pretty good leaf drop in the inside, and so there's nothing that really, you know, started taking off in here. And we hope to get to the same thing on the other two varieties going to the front of this area. So this is an incredibly productive little space.
But we have been harvesting on it.
Yeah, we have. Actually, in the wintertime, since we've had a really mild winter, we were able to take off side branches and maybe clip some of the very tip tops on a lot of these guys. And we were able to get some pretty good merchantable stems. So that's not uncommon for Western Oregon. If we have a warm enough winter here in the Willamette Valley, that we can go ahead and take, you know, really material that's kind of hardened off pretty good too, because one of the things about cutting eucalyptus is you don't want to get too much of the very, very fresh growth. It's got to have some time to age and get a little more firm, because if you have too much of really, really green new growth on it and you cut it, you run a really good chance of it wilting on you. Even with using some kind of floral preservatives and things like that, you tend to get some problems. But
It just looks like you haven't cut any.
no.
I know we have.
Oh yeah.
We've been cutting throughout the winter.
Yeah. Yeah. And there was a lot of growth that really these guys put on in the August through October timeframe. That's when a lot of this silver drop just really, we really noticed that it was getting way, way ahead of us. So yeah, I guess the point on this is you can grow eucalyptus from seed. You can get really good productive hedge out of it. Or trees, depending, you know. But you know, there's a maintenance that you need to do. And actually, you know, I think you could probably, if you really maintained it, you could probably force the silver drop into actually making a hedge. You know, because it would just begin, you know, if you topped it off, you know, like 6 foot or something, or 7 foot, and then it would force it to put out side branches on that, and you just keep it trimmed, it probably would make, you know, a hedge just on the basis of the way it's growing.
So if we take it down now and trim it down as far as you said, how long will it be before we can have foliage to offer?
Well, you know,
what's the recovery time?
You know, that's a good question, because this is really our first go at this. But typically, I mean, just for us, we don't really start harvesting eucalyptus until late in the summer. Lots of times on, especially when the growth is pretty new. It really needs, you know, a period of time of several months for, you know, a branch to kind of get past that stage where it would be wilty. And the biggest flush, I think, for us is going to be late summer and into fall. Although, you know, we'll see how it goes. Some varieties, it may be like the dwarf florist, we could probably start on that one earlier, but I think these guys might be a little bit later.
That's a lot of effort to get back up.
Well, yeah, but we don't want it to go to 20 feet. Yeah, 20 feet before we start harvesting it. But, you know, it could do it on, it probably will.
Yeah, probably will.
So let's get started on cutting. We're gonna start with the end on the dwarf florist, and then we're probably gonna need the pole saw or at least a hand saw to cut these guys off. But I think the other two guys here, we can use mostly loppers or just a handsaw. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna haul the stuff out, we'll sort through it, see what merchantable stems we can get off of it. And then whatever stems that are non-merchantable, we could just chop and drop and, you know, haul back over the bed and use it as a mulch. So let's get started. Okay, so we got this all cut down, and we got each of the different varieties coppiced to somewhere between 18 and 24 inches, it looks like. The smaller dwarf florists, we definitely were closer to 18 to 20 inch. I left the silver drop a little higher. I'm gonna see if maybe that just gives a different kind of level of sprout, but I kind of really felt uncomfortable taking some of these larger guys and you know, whacking them down too far down, but maybe I'm making a mistake. I will find out. But what we also did too is we took out some, thinned some of them out. Now we're raising this as a hedge type thing, so this is not like we're trying to get to individual trees that are a good size. So it is pretty crowded in this bed. But probably what'll happen over the course of the next couple of rotations going through this, I'm going to evidently have some that are going to be more dominant than others, and then I'll just remove the weaker ones out of the patch. But overall, as you can see, we whacked down those 20-foot guys. That pole saw really works great. Good tool there. And I think the last thing to do on this project is we're going to sort through the refuse and see if we got any merchantable stems, and then we'll haul the rest of that stuff off to our burn area so that we can make biochar out of it. Then, after we get that all cleaned out, we're going to come through. I got some old wood chips. I'm going to lay that down, and that should finish the project totally. So, I want to thank you all for joining us today. It was we had to dodge the rain showers a little bit, but we got it done, and this is going to be some really great greens for our cut flowers business for this fall. I think it's going to be super. Okay. Denise had to take off and do some other things, so I'm flying solo on the end of this video today, and as always, everybody, stay safe out there and you have a great day. Bye-bye.